Hiya! Welcome! I'm back with another edition of Minidisc Monday, and today I'm going to look at an album from another group who we've already covered on this series previously, and we've got a few more albums by this band to go yet. I'm talking about the Welsh group Manic Street Preachers and their second studio album, Gold Against the Soul. So this came out in 1993, as you saw. It got to number 8 on the UK album charts and was the follow-up to Generation Terrorists, which I reviewed some Minidisc Mondays back, and I really enjoyed hearing that again. So I had fairly high expectations for listening to Gold Against the Soul, and I've just finished listening to it, and it's only the second time I've ever listened to this Minidisc in full. I'll get on to how I feel about the album and some of the individual tracks shortly, but as I always do first, we'll have a look at the case and the disc and the booklet. So the case is a bit scuffed on the front, but it's in decent condition overall. It's not broken off its hinges or anything. There's the disc with the album artwork on that side, and the track listing and some legal and copyright bump on the bottom. As for the booklet itself, it's still in nice condition after all these years. This Minidisc was a 1999 issue, I believe, so it came out some years after the album was originally released on CD, and presumably it had a vinyl and a cassette release in '93 as well. But we've got lyrics in here and a few band shots. Nice centerfold of the group there. Some more legal stuff on the back. Also on the back of the case itself, the back cover if you will, there's a poem by a guy called Primo Levi, and he wrote it in 14th of January 1985, Song of Those Who Died in Vain, and it's like a poem lamenting war really, which would certainly suit the Manic's political leanings of the time. But what of the album itself? Is it as good as Generation Terrorists? I think overall no, it isn't, but it's a strong follow-up, and I believe it had mixed reviews at the time, but has been somewhat reappraised in more recent years. But we'll go through the tracks and I'll let you know my thoughts on some of them. So starts with a really good opener, Sleep Flower. I think that says Sleep Flower. I'm struggling a little bit to read the red on kind of goldy grey text on the back here. Then track 2, From Despair to Where, that came out as a single, and understandably it's a pretty strong track. One of my favourites on the album is track number 3 and another single, La Tristessa Llorera brackets Scream to a Sigh. Really good song that got a nice sort of, I don't know how to describe it, saying rhythmic kind of drum pattern to it is a bit daft because drums are supposed to provide rhythm for anything, but I played a clip earlier, hopefully it wasn't muted for copyright, so you'll have seen what I mean. And then track number 4 is Yourself. Track 5 I think's possibly my favourite on the album actually. It did come out as a single, albeit via an EP, and it is Life Becoming a Landslide, and it's sort of like almost a heavy metal ballad type thing. Once again, the Manic Street Preachers are kind of mixing genres here with glam metal, hard rock, punk, a little bit of grunge thrown in places as well, which was of course very popular at the time of this album's release. But that's a personal standout for me, is Life Becoming a Landslide. Track 6, another really good one, Druggy, and despite the lyrical content, it's got a very catchy chorus, as you can imagine. Really enjoyed that. Another single at track number 7, Roses in the Hospital. Fantastic. Very strong album at this point. And one thing that I think this album has something in its favour against Generation Terrorists is that this album is only about 42-43 minutes long. Generation Terrorists, I still think that's better overall, but it's a long album. It goes well over an hour. There's a lot of tracks on it, and towards the end certainly there's a little bit of filler on that, but I did talk about that in the review on Minidisc Monday for Generation Terrorists. Number 8 is the rather unpleasantly titled Nostalgic Pusshead, and number 9, Symphony of Tourette. You can imagine there is some strong language throughout this album. And then the title track finishes off. It's sort of like a funk inspired piece almost. Gold Against the Soul rounds the album out, and there isn't, I would say, a particularly bad track on here. Some I prefer more than others, which is generally always the case, 100 times out of 100 when you're listening to an album. As I say, overall it's that very slightly bit weaker than Generation Terrorists. Maybe the lyrical content isn't as political as it was on the first album, but still the Manics have got a lot to say for themselves at this point in their career, and this is, I think, what is largely an underrated album in their canon, but certainly one that I enjoyed listening to again. So thank you for watching Minidisc Monday today. Hope you enjoyed this look at another Manics album. I've got 4 more of their studio albums on Minidisc. They will be covered in this series in due course. I can't say exactly when, but in the meantime I want to say a special thanks to my wonderful subscribers and generous patrons, and ask that you join me again in 2 weeks' time for the next instalment of Minidisc Monday. Cheers everyone. See ya!